Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
I'll share my screen. Okay. So, in my last class, we were discussing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Mahaprakash Leela, and we will continue with that. Now, Krishna's most intimate loving associates of all his different avatars, they appeared as different personalities in Mahaprabhu's Leela. And we know the identities of them are mentioned in the Sri Gaura Ganadesh Dipika. And one of the eternal associate of Lord is Hanuman. And it was Hanuman's wish to be the servant of the Lord, wherever and whenever the Lord appeared within this world. And so he came as Murari Gupta in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela. And in Ramayana, we see that Hanuman, he was everything. He was a great yogi, he was a great Ayurvedic physician. He brought the whole Gandhamadan mountain with the healing herb for Lakshman. He was a poet, he was a scholar, musician, athlete, architect, engineer, Lord's carrier. He was everything. Because in whatever way he could be engaged in Ram's service, he put his entire heart and soul in total surrender without ego. And so, therefore, he was fully empowered in whatever he did. So, Hanuman came as Murari Gupta, who happened to be an Ayurvedic physician who lived in Sri Navadvip Dham. Also, Murari Gupta was the first person to write notes on the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And just as Hanuman is celebrated to bring the glories of the Ram to the world, Murari Gupta's notes that he took of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, it helped in developing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's biographies that we read, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, um, and these glorify Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Murari Gupta, he was a staunch devotee of Lord Ram. And this past time, one time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Murari Gupta, why don't you worship Krishna? Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is a reservoir of all transcendental qualities, and his pastimes are very sweet. You should take shelter of Krishna. So Murari Gupta, when he heard Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went home and he spent the whole night thinking, how would he be able to give up the association of Lord Ram? And he was overwhelmed. And he began to pray at the lotus feet of Lord Ram. He prayed that death would come that night because it was not possible for him to give up the service of Lord Ram. And Murari Gupta, he cried the entire night. And in the morning, he came to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he fell down at his feet. And crying, he said to Mahaprabhu that I have sold my head onto the lotus feet of Lord Ram and I cannot withdraw my head, for that would give me too much pain. It's not possible for me to give up the service of Lord Ram. And at the same time, if I do not do what you have asked me to do, I don't want to break your order. So, and then he prayed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you are all merciful, so please grant me this mercy, let me die before you, so that all my doubts are finished. So, hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Murari Gupta, all glories to you, Murari Gupta. Your method of worship is very firmly fixed, so much that even upon my request, your mind did not turn. And then he said this verse, Ei mata seva kera priti chahi prabhu paya, prabhu chadi leha pada chadananayaya. The servitor must have love and affection for the lotus feet of the Lord, exactly like this. Even if the Lord wants separation, a devotee cannot abandon the shelter of his lotus feet. Purport. The word Prabhu or master indicates that the Lord is to be continuously served by his devotee. The original Prabhu is the Lord, Sri Krishna. Nonetheless, there are many devotees attached to Lord Ramachandra, and Murari Gupta is a vivid example of such unalloyed devotion. He never agreed to give up Lord Ramachandra's worship, not even upon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's request. Such is the chastity of devotional service. As stated in Antilila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sei bhakta dhanya ye na chhade prabhura charana, Sei prabhu dhanya ye na chhade nij jana. दुर्देव सेविका यदि याया अन्य स्थाने से ठाकुर धन्य तारे चुले धरियाने. In a firm relationship with the Lord, the devotee does not give up the Lord's service under any circumstance. As far as the Lord himself is concerned, if the devotee chooses to leave, the Lord brings him back again, dragging him by the hair. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was just playing with Murari Gupta. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from Krishna and non-different from Lord Ram. And during Mahaprakash Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he showed his form as Lord Ram to Murari Gupta. And we'll read some verses from Chaitanya Bhagavat from that section. The Lord ordered Murari, "Behold my form," and Murari saw the Lord as Ramachandra. He saw Vishwambar as dark like fresh grass, and he sat in the Virasan posture as a powerful archer. He saw Sita and Lakshman on the Lord's left and right. The leaders of the monkeys were offering prayers in the four directions. Murari realized that he was also one of the monkeys. Seeing the Lord face to face, the best of the doctors lost consciousness. As he lost consciousness, he fell to the ground in Lord Chaitanya's trap. Vishwambar exclaimed, "O monkey, you forgot how Ravan, who stole Sita, burnt you. You burnt his entire city and subdued his dynasty. I tell you, I am that Lord. O Murari, get up, get up. You are my life. I am that Ramachandra and you are Hanuman. See, your life and soul, the son of Sumitra. You brought Ganda Madan Hill to revive his life. Offer your obeisances at the feet of Sita, whose distress made you cry profusely." Upon hearing Lord Chaitanya's words, Murari regained his consciousness. Seeing that manifestation, he began to cry in love. Upon hearing Murari Gupta cry, even dry wood melted, and the hearts of the devotees especially melted. Vishwambar again said to Murari, "Ask for any benediction you desire." Murari replied, "O Lord, I do not want anything. Simply allow me to sing your glories. O Lord, I may take birth anywhere, but wherever I take birth, let me always remember you. Let me reside in the association of your servants, birth after birth. O Lord, do not put me in a condition in which you are not my master and I am not your servant. May I remain your servant wherever you and your associates incarnate." When the Lord said, "I certainly grant you this benediction," a tumultuous vibration of Jai Jai immediately arose. All the Vaishnavas had great affection for Murari, who was by nature merciful to all living entities. If Murari was associated with any place, that place became as sanctified as Vaikuntha. Who can describe the glories of Murari? In every incarnation, the Lord was the dear friend of Murari. Lord Chaitanya said, "Listen, everyone. Anyone who blasphemes Murari will not be delivered, even if he takes millions of baths in the Ganges. Neither the Ganges nor the holy name of Hari will nullify his sins. Lord Murari resides in his heart, Gupte, or secretly. Therefore, his name, Murari Gupta, is quite appropriate." On seeing the Lord's mercy on Murari, all the exalted devotees cried in love while chanting the name of Krishna. Anyone who hears the narration of Lord Chaitanya bestowing mercy on Murari attains loving devotional service. The Lord rode 8 betel nuts as Murari and Sridhar cried in front of him. So we see there are 4 benedictions Murari Gupta asked for. So let's recollect. Murari Gupta asked for: Number 1, always allow me to sing your glories. 2, wherever I take birth, let me always remember you. 3, let me reside in association of your servants birth after birth. And 4th, do not put me in any condition where you are not my master and I am not your servant. Let me remain your servant wherever you and your associates incarnate. So Murari Gupta is Hanuman, and Hanuman is the Acharya of Dasyam, servitude. We have 9 processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pad Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So, Dasyam, servitude, is exemplified by Hanuman. So, I was reading the book, The Chronicles of Hanuman by Shubh Vilas Das Prabhu, who is a disciple of Radhanath Swami. I want to read some chapters from that book. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll read this one chapter. Does anyone want to read The Real Diamond?
I can read.
Sure, Prabhuji.
The Real Diamond. A Thanksgiving ceremony was organized after Lord Ram's coronation as the king of Ayodhya. However, a thought had been troubling the divine couple for many months now. So many people had served them with selflessness, but they hadn't been able to reciprocate adequately as they themselves had nothing in their possession to give away. Of course, they shared the love they had within their hearts, but now that they had resources, they wanted to offer more. Each and every friend was called upon and duly honored. Lord Ram made the announcement that though each one of them was being awarded, the value of the gift was insignificant compared to the valuable service each of them had rendered in the past months. So this is after Lord Ram comes back and gets crowned as
Yes,
the.
Prabhuji.
They chose to offer the last recognition to the most submissive and heroic personality who had by now become their favorite. When he was called, Hanuman walked up to the throne with his head cast downward, as Lord Ram and Sita recollected tales of his heroism. Everyone in Ayodhya was spellbound by his achievements. After the tales of Hanuman's valor were narrated, Lord Ram got up and embraced Hanuman, telling the world that he could never repay sufficiently his debt to Hanuman. Sita declared that Hanuman deserved more honor than anyone else, and that she definitely wanted to offer a reward to the reluctant Hanuman. Hanuman reiterated that for him, an opportunity to be of service to Lord Ram was his greatest reward. Seeing Hanuman's hesitance to accept anything, Sita decided to offer him her own priceless bejeweled necklace. When Sita actually took off her invaluable necklace, people in the audience gasped. They praised Hanuman for receiving such an honor from the queen and considered him lucky. Hanuman held out his hands and received the gift with absolute disinterest. He began to closely inspect the necklace from all angles. After twisting and turning it in all directions, Hanuman still couldn't see what he wanted to see. To the shock of all those present there, he then began he then began to dismantle the necklace, tearing it to the small shreds. He broke each and every diamond in the necklace and carefully reviewed its inner content. He began to smash the pieces of diamonds on the ground in disgust. Finally, after every part of the necklace was inspected and demolished, Hanuman looked up. He found thousands of jaws dropped. None of the people in the audience could digest what had just happened. How could anyone destroy a royal gift, that too right in front of the queen? When they saw that Hanuman wasn't even attempting to defend himself by justifying his actions, they became extremely upset and angry with him for his deplorable behavior. All the prominent citizens of Ayodhya from different corners of the courtroom began to demand an explanation. Hanuman humbly explained that he was breaking the stones to see if Mother Sita and Lord Ram were inside the necklace. For Hanuman, something was valuable only if it had the presence of the divine couple. And since the necklace and every diamond in that necklace were devoid of the couple's presence, the gift was useless for him. When Lord Ram and Sita heard this explanation, They were extremely pleased with Hanuman's devotion and smiled, looking at each other. For them, he was the real diamond. But the others in the courtroom felt that their king and queen had been insulted by Hanuman's action. Some even began to joke about Hanuman's so called devotion. They even said that his love for Lord Ram and Mother Sita was only a sham and had no real depth. One of them challenged Hanuman mockingly. He said, "If you really don't value anything that doesn't have Lord Ram and Mother Sita in it, will you value your heart if it doesn't have Lord Ram and Mother Sita in it? How can you be sure that your heart has the divine couple inside it?" Everyone burst out laughing, seeing the shrunken face of Hanuman. Amidst their laughter, everyone froze. Hanuman now stood in the middle of the courtroom, with his chest ripped open. Blood had spilled all over the courtroom. People were aghast at what he had done to himself. With his bare hands, he had ripped apart his chest. But what amazed everyone the most was within his chest there was a beautiful image of Sita and Lord Ram enthroned within his heart. Lord Ram and Sita had tears in their eyes, and the others had shame written on their faces. Everyone in the courtroom fell at the feet of their worshipable superhero and Bhakta Hanuman. Outer wealth cannot be bartered to acquire the gem of inner goodness.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So we have this famous picture of Hanuman uh, ripping apart his chest and to show Ram and Sita within his heart. So Hanuman is showing that the greatest wealth for us is all things that remind us of Krishna, of Lord Ram. And as a servant, we should utilize all things we have in the service of the Lord, who is the proprietor of everything in the world. And that's the principle of Yukta Vairagya.
Isn't the same thing happened when Hanuman was visiting Ravan and there also he ripped open his heart? Or is it the first time? I thought when he went to Lanka also, there also. I'm just asking. I mean,
Uh, mm,
is there any
I,
other? Okay.
I did not read that in this book.
Uh-huh.
There could be, Prabhuji, because there's so many different reminds. The stories are a little bit different. I
Oh,
have seen.
hmm.
Yeah, so it is possible.
Okay. No, this may be another time also. There may
Yes. Yes. So the best thing that reminds us of Lord Ram is the association of devotees. When devotees speak Hari Katha, Ram Katha, then hearing the glories of the Lord and the mercy and the loving reciprocation of the Lord, our faith increases and the relationship with the Lord that we have forgotten is re-established. So that's why Murari Gupta, we heard one of the benedictions he is asking for is to remain in the association of Lord's servant and hear glories of Lord Ram. So same thing Hanuman asked for. So let's read one more chapter. I'll read. The permanent resident. Every monkey came forward, paid his obeisance to Lord Ram, and accepted a special gift from his hands and stepped back to his seat. Lord Ram had decided to greet every monkey in the army before the send off. The previous day, the chiefs in the army had been felicitated, but Lord Ram felt that that wasn't enough. He wanted to personally express his gratitude even to the lowest ranking soldiers in the army, as all of them had done more than what any family member would do. Once the felicitation ceremony was completed, he turned to the entire senior batch of monkeys and instructed them to return to their abodes and continue serving society according to the principles they had learnt under his guidance in the last few months. Shedding tears of gratitude, all the monkeys departed from Ayodhya. Now Lord Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman were the only ones left. Lord Ram turned to Hanuman and, with tears in his eyes, asked him if he had any desires in his heart. Hanuman, for the first time, decided to express his desire to the Lord. He said, "Please grant me the boon that my love for you remains forever. Let me not forget you even for a second. Let my attention be not diverted from your exclusive shelter and service. Let me not even aspire to serve anyone else in this world who is disconnected to you. Let me continue living till such time that your divine story is told and retold in this world. I do not seek anything else. Hearing Hanuman's words, filled with a sincere desire to serve him, Lord Ram became overwhelmed with emotions, and while embracing him, shared his heart. He told him how he was indebted to Hanuman for each and every service he had rendered him. Yet again, Lord Ram reiterated that the only thing he could offer Hanuman for everything that he had done and for everything he would be doing in the future was this embrace. That moment, Hanuman took a major decision in his life, a decision people have not been able to comprehend even today. Hanuman felt that since the Lord had embraced his body several times now, he had acquired a special strength due to Lord Ram's mercy. Concluding thus, he decided that he would never go to the spiritual world. He would remain in the material world with this blessed body forever. And of course, while living in this world, his idea was wherever there would be a Ram Katha going on, he would go there, sit and carefully hear the narration while meditating on the glories of Lord Ram. Even today, whenever and wherever Ram Leela is being discussed, there is Hanuman Leela going on somewhere. A story remains alive through centuries when its message remains relevant to modern times. Here it says that it was Hanuman's desire to stay in the material world to serve Lord Ram and hear his glories. I heard a little bit different explanation. This is Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami, and there it also has like glories of Hanuman, because Narad Muni, he goes to Prahlad Maharaj saying that you are the topmost devotee, you have attained the highest mercy from the Lord. But then Prahlad Maharaj says, no, I'm not the one, it's Hanuman who is the best servant of the Lord. So at that point, there are certain verses Prahlad Maharaj says, and one of the verses he says that it was Hanuman who encouraged Mother Sita, and by the Lord's order, this Hanuman, the one true recipient of his master's favor, still lives in this world, though unable to bear separation from the Lord. So, since Hanuman's life with Lord Ramachandra after the victory was so fortunate, one might ask how Hanuman could ever have left the Lord's association. Why did he not return with Lord Ram to the eternal Ayodhya and Vaikuntha along with the other residents of the kingdom? The answer is that his Lord specially asked him to stay behind on earth. Atmeshwar means his own Lord, and it also means the Lord of all Atmas. In other words, by staying in this world, Hanuman gave all its inhabitants a much better chance to take to the path of pure devotional service. Lord Ramachandra ordered Hanuman to make this severe sacrifice because the Lord wanted to bestow such mercy on the conditioned soul. Living in separation from the Lord is Hanuman's most difficult and glorious service. So, Hanuman, he is always enthusiastic and eager to hear Ram Katha be heard. Wherever Ram Katha is going on, Hanuman is present. Now, Hanuman is also enthusiastic to always sing the glories of Lord Ram, do Ram Katha himself. And because of his Ram Katha, he is able to save the day and emerge successful. Now, let's see one instance how Ram Katha saved the day. So I was hearing this pastime in a lecture. When Sita was kidnapped by Ravan, Ram, he formed an alliance with Sugriva. And Sugriva, he was leading the search mission to find Sita. So Sugriva, he organized the monkeys in 4 groups. And he sent each group to one direction, north, south, east, and west. And these search parties, they were asked to return within a month. And it was declared that the latecomers would be liable for severe punishment. So among these groups, the group that went in the south direction, it was most likely to locate Sita because Ravan had been seen carrying Sita southwards. And this southbound group, it had great generals. It had Hanuman, Angad, who is the son of Bali, and Jambavan. And Ram, he gave Hanuman his ring. that if he met Sita, Hanuman could give the ring to Sita, that would assure Sita that Hanuman was a messenger from Ram and not someone who was employed by Ravan. So this group, they had been searching for Sita without rest. They were hungry, they were thirsty, and they were not finding any clues where Mother Sita was. And these monkeys, they felt lost. And finally, they came on the bank of the ocean at the southernmost tip. And they were now convinced that they cannot find Mother Sita. And they decided to end their lives by doing fasting until death. So when they sat down to commit suicide, nearby there was a giant vulture called Sampati. He was watching them and he said, "Wow, after a long time, now I have a big feast in front of me. There's so many monkeys sitting, I will eat each one of them and I will satisfy my hunger. I have been hungry for many days." So this Sampati, he was a great vulture and he had no wings. So Sampati was waiting for them to die so that he could pounce on them and eat them. But then suddenly Hanuman and Angad, well, they said that now that we are about to die, let us remember Lord Ram. And they started singing Ram's glories, Ram's pastimes. So, this is a very important pastime which reveals how hearing and chanting is very powerful. So, Angad, he starts recounting Lord Ram's pastime, and they were all chanting, waiting to leave their bodies. And they came to a section of Ram Leela where they spoke about how Jatayu laid his life down for Lord Ram. And then when this vulture, Sampati, it heard Jatayu's name, he like roared. Looking at Angad, he said, "You monkey Vanar, tell me, how do you know Jatayu? Tell me more about him. How did he die?" So then Angad explained to Sampati about Jatayu, and then Sampati said, "Jatayu is my younger brother. When we were younger, both of us, we were flying very arrogantly. We explored the entire universe, and I and Jatayu flew up to the sun, and when we entered the sun's orbit, it became so hot that our wings started burning, and Jatayu, he was exhausted. And to protect Jatayu, I covered him with my wings. But in this process, my wings got burnt, and we both fell down. And when we fell to the earth, we got separated. And I lost my wings forever, and I have lost Jatayu since then. And I always thought about him. Now that you're mentioning Jatayu's name, and that he has given his life in the service of Lord Ram, I feel great sadness that I have lost my dear brother, but I feel also proud that he gave his life for Lord Ram." So then Sampati offered oblations to Jatayu and he explained something very interesting. He said, "When I fell down from the skies, I lost my wings. I thought, now my life is useless and I wanted to commit suicide. I wanted to end my life. So I went to a rishi called Chandrama Rishi. And this rishi, he told me that don't end your life. There is a reason why your wings are gone. You have to now stay only here. You cannot fly anywhere. Stay here, and one day you will get a chance to serve the Lord very personally." So I can see, so here, Sampati is saying that now I can see how I have a chance to serve all of you. You are looking for Mother Sita. Although I cannot fly, but from this distance, I still have very sharp eyes, and I can see that at the southernmost tip of this ocean, I see Lanka, and I can see Mother Sita in Lanka. So I advise you, all monkeys, to go to Lanka, and there you will find what you're looking for. So Sampati, he expressed his gratitude to the Vanaras that he had been waiting since the last 8,000 years, waiting for this opportunity to serve the Lord. And like this, we have also another example, Shabri. She also waited for thousands of years, waiting for Lord Ram to come. And this devotee I was hearing, he was saying that sometimes we are chanting for 1 or 2 years and we are thinking, why am I not getting Krishna? But from Sampati's example, we can learn that patience will bear fruit. 8,000 years Sampati had to wait, and he got a chance to serve. And I was also thinking, when we get the opportunity to serve the Lord, that is Lord's mercy. Like Sampati, we have probably waited millions of lifetimes to not to now been given the opportunity to serve the Lord, chant His holy name, glorify Him. So we should be grateful. We should utilize all the opportunities that come to us where someone is asking us to serve by um, speaking Hari Katha, by cleaning the pots in the temple, distributing books. So many services are there, and we should not miss out on these opportunities. Like Prema Sindhu Prabhu was saying yesterday, we should grab every opportunity, be greedy and eager to serve. Like a businessman who is eager to make more and more profits. He makes profits when the market is up by selling the stocks, and makes profit by when the market is down by purchasing the stocks. And in whatever situation we are, good or bad materially, we should be eager to utilize every situation to accumulate more and more spiritual credits. And devotees' business, vyavasai, is to serve the Lord at every moment. And in one class, I was also hearing another pastime in Canto 10, Srimad Bhagavatam. There is a pastime when Krishna, he went to Mathura and he approached a washerman to give him and asked him to give him clothes. But this washerman, he refused Krishna, saying, "These clothes are for Kansa, and how dare you ask for them?" And Krishna, he becomes angry, and using his hands, he separates the washerman's head from his body. And I heard in this class that it is said that after millions of lifetimes, this washerman got the opportunity to serve Lord Krishna. And Krishna so mercifully came personally to him to ask for something, but he lost that opportunity. So we should remember that how rare it is to get the opportunity to serve Krishna. So, like that, we should not miss out on it, and we should grab the service eagerly. So another thing that we learn from this pastime of the Sampati is the power of Hari Katha. These monkey soldiers, they were so distraught, they were discouraged, they were sad, and they were sat down not knowing how they will find Sita. So they were contemplating on committing suicide. But then when Hanuman and Angad, they started speaking Ram Katha, they all stopped their analysis, their thinking, their intelligence, and they simply engaged in hearing and chanting. And when they engaged in hearing and chanting, they received help from another dimension, from another source, from another person. So, similarly, when we are trying to solve so many of our complicated life issues, the Ramayana is teaching us, wait, forget about those problems for the time being. Think about them later, some other time. Right now, spend time exclusively remembering, hearing, and chanting about the Lord. And like Sampati came to solve the monkey's problem, Lord will send someone or reveal within our hearts a solution to our problems. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upyantite. As we were reading yesterday, Prabhupada writes in the purport of this verse, if the devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress, Krishna from within gives him instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. So this is the power of hearing and chanting. So I was hearing in one lecture something interesting, that there are three major suicide attempts in Ramayana. And in all these three attempts, Hanuman was there to avert them. And therefore, Hanuman's personality is someone who gives hope. And for us to overcome depression, overcome our lust, our anarthas, we need a hopeful heart. And we need to have hope for a better future. So now Hanuman, he gives us hope because he's always doing two things. He is always glorifying Lord Ram, singing Ram Katha, and he's always in the mood of servant. So the three suicide situations. So the first suicide situation we just talked about, the monkeys were planning to fast till death, and Hanuman started speaking Ram Katha, and Sampati came. So the second suicide situation is in case of Mother Sita. Mother Sita, she was so depressed and sad in Ashok Vatika. When Hanuman, he saw Sita, he saw that Sita had tied her long hair to a tree branch, and she was looping it around her neck in an attempt to end her life. And Hanuman was shocked seeing this. And he didn't want to act in haste and suddenly jump in front of Sita and frighten her or make her scream and push her into immediately strangulating herself. Um, so, what he did was, in a quiet but audible voice, he jumped onto a tree beneath the tree Sita was sitting. He jumped onto the tree and he began to sing Ram Katha, pastimes of Lord Ram, right from his birth to his banishment to his exile in the forest to Sita's abduction. And he described Lord Ram's efforts to find Sita and how Hanuman was now here with a message from Lord Ram. And Sita, she hearing these pastimes, she gave up her thoughts about suicide and she started crying tears of joy. So this is the second suicide attempt Hanuman saved. Now the third suicide attempt that was averted by Hanuman was in case of Bharat. Bharat, he was waiting for Lord Ram, and Lord Ram, he had not returned after killing Ravan to Ayodhya. And Bharat, he had prepared his funeral pyre to jump in because he had taken a vow. If Ram did not return on the day the 14-year exile got over, he would end his life. So Ram, he had borrowed the Pushpak Viman from Vibhishan, and this Viman, it could fly at the speed of thought. But Lord Ram, he had to make several stops because of the commitments that he had made to several sages. So he had to make the stops. But he wanted to ensure that Bharat would not take any drastic step. So Lord Ram, he sent Hanuman ahead. And Bharat, when Hanuman came, Bharat was just about to jump into the fire. And Hanuman arrived, and before Hanuman could introduce himself to Bharat, since Bharat, he had never met Hanuman before. So before he introduced himself, without wasting a moment, Hanuman started narrating Ram's glories. So this is from Tulsidas Ramayana. श्री रामचंद्र कृपालु भज मन हरन भव भय दारुणम नव कंज लोचन कंज मुख कर कंज पद कंजानुर जारुणम कंदर्प अगणित अमित छवि नवनील नीरद सुंदरम पटपीतमानहो तडितरुचिसुचि नौमि जनकसुतावरं श्रीरामचन्द्रकृपालु भज मन हरन भव भयदारुणं भज दीनबन्धु दिनेश दानव दैत्यवंशनिकन्दनं रघुनन्द आनन्द कन्द कौशल चन्द्र दशरथ नन्दनं श्रीरामचन्द्र कृपालु भज मन हरन भव भयदारुणम् शिरमुकुटकुण्डलतिलकचारुदार अङ्गविभूषणम् आजानुभुज सरचापधर संग्रामजित खरदूषणम् श्रीरामचन्द्र कृपालु भज मन हरन भव भयदारुणम् इति वदति तुलसीदास शङ्कर शेषमुनिमनरञ्जनं मम हृदयकञ्जनिवास कुरु कामादिखलदल गञ्जनं श्रीरामचन्द्र कृपालु भज मन हरन भव भयदारुणम्. So I'll read the translation. O mind, always meditate upon the merciful Sri Ramachandra, who removes bhava, the worldly sorrow or pain, bhaya, the fear, and daruna, the scarcity or poverty, who has fresh lotus eyes, lotus face, and lotus hands, feet like lotus and like the rising sun. His beauty exceeds innumerable Kamdevs. He is like a newly formed, beautiful blue cloud. The yellow robe on his body appears like delightful lightning. He is the consort of the daughter of Sri Janak, the embodiment of sacredness. O mind, sing praises of Sri Ram, a friend of the poor. He is the lord of the solar dynasty. He is the destroyer of demons and devils and their race. The descendant of Sri Raghu is a source of joy, a moon of his mother Kaushalya, and he is the son of Sri Dashrath. He wears a crown on his head, pendants on his ear, and tilak on his forehead. All his organs are beautiful and well decorated with ornaments. His arms reach his knees. He holds a bow and an arrow. He emerged victorious in the battle with demons, Khar and Dushan. Thus says Sri Tulsidas, O Sri Ram, the charmer of Lord Shiva, Sri Shesh, and saints, reside in the lotus of my heart and destroy all evils and their associates like desires. So, like that, Hanuman, he started singing glories of Lord Ram, and he started narrating Ram Katha from the beginning of Ram Leela till the point where Lord Ram he had reached Bhardwaj Muni's ashram while on his way to meet Bharat. And when Bharat he heard this sweet narration of Ram's pastimes, he abandoned the idea of ending his life. So we can see the power of Harikatha. Three suicide attempts averted. That's that's one of the benedictions Murari Gupta asked for, if you remember, to always sing the glories of Lord Ram. So there are several verses in Srimad Bhagavatam glorifying this hearing and chanting. I just picked a few verses. So Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, considering all these points, intelligent men decide to solve all problems by adopting the devotional service of chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart and who is a mine of all auspicious qualities. Mad ashraya kathamrishta shinvanti kathayanti cha tapanti vividastapa madgata chetasa. Engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. This is from Canto 4. My dear king, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of a river, one will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, and illusion. And from Canto 12. Yes, tu tamah shloka gunanuvada sangiyate bhikshanam amangalagna tam eva nityam shrunuyad abhikshanam krishne malam bhaktim abhikshamana. The person who desires pure devotional service to Lord Krishna should hear the narrations of Lord Uttam Shloka's glorious qualities, the constant chanting of which destroys everything inauspicious. The devotee should engage in such listening in regular daily assemblies and should also continue his hearing throughout the day. So, bhakti means working hard in our sadhana of hearing and chanting, making hearing and chanting a priority, and then allowing Krishna to reveal solutions to all our problems. So, now moving on to the pastime of Hanuman. So when these monkeys they found out about the location of Mother Sita from Sampati, everybody was sitting and they were discussing who's going to cross the ocean to go to Lanka and find Mother Sita. So everybody appoints Jambavan that he should go to get Sita. And Jambavan, he says, being an old bear, I can jump, but I don't have the strength to find Mother Sita and come back. So it needs to be someone who can jump, fight, find, and return with good news. And that someone is Hanuman. Now Hanuman, he was shocked to hear this because Hanuman, he didn't even know that he could fly. As we know, when Hanuman he was a child, he had lost he had a lot of powers, and he was very playful and restless, and he was causing mischief, and he was disturbing the sages who were doing yagnas. So Hanuman, he was cursed that he would forget all his powers until someone reminds him of his potential. So when he grew up, he didn't even realize how much potential he had, and now Jambavan, he's reminding Hanuman of his potential. So I heard in lecture this Ramayana here is teaching us a leadership sutra. Who is a good leader? A good leader is he who's like Jambavan. He understands that he himself has potential, but someone else has more potential, and he says Hanuman should do that. Right? The leader, it can be of two types. He can be like the sages who see Hanuman's potential and cursed him to forget his powers. So there can be leaders like who see that somebody is very qualified and they try to shut him down. Or the leader can be like Jambavan, saying that I cannot do it, but I see that you have the potential. You should do it. And the person, he doesn't believe that he can do it, but then Jambavan, being a leader, he motivates and lifts the spirit that I see it, but you don't. So believe me, and you should jump. So leader is he who knows the way, who goes the way, and who shows the way. And a true leader is like salt. He adds taste to everything, but he himself remains invisible. So, like Jambavan in Ramayana, he never becomes prominent. He's not the hero. But Jambavan, he's humble to understand that I'm just a small servant in a long chain of servants helping to unite Lord Ram and Sita. So, like that, if the leader understands that the goal is more important than who gets the credit, then there is success. So Hanuman, he believed in the empowerment given by Jambavan, and Hanuman, he climbed up the mountain, and it is described that as he chanted the holy name of Lord Ram, he took off like an arrow of Ram, a man on mission. So you know that the arrow, in the infallible arrow of Ram Ban, it kills the person, it does the needful, and then it retires. It never is defeated. So Hanuman was like that Ramban. So now when Hanuman, he jumped in the mid air, he's thinking, Hanuman is thinking, now I've already jumped. What if I run out of fuel? What if I get tired? What if I fall into this water? So then Hanuman, he comforts himself by thinking, oh, I don't have to worry. After all, my father is Vayudev, so I have my father to support me. But then he chastises himself and thinks, well, when I have the holy name of Lord Ram and a guru like Jambavan, still I'm looking for comfort from my father. So he was chastising himself. So this is the lesson for a devotee, that if a devotee has to perform a service, he has to depend more on his guru and the empowerment from the holy name of the Lord, instead of thinking that I have plans. If the plan A fails, I have plan B. If that fails, I have plan C, and I have all my contacts. My father is Vayudev. I have eaten Surya Dev when I was a child. I'm very powerful. Now I can do what I want. So, no, a devotee is not like that. He's totally dependent on Guru and the holy name. So, like in Srimad Bhagavatam, Gajendra, he says this nice verse: unalloyed devotees who have no desire other than to serve the Lord worship Him in full surrender and always hear and chant about His activities, which are most wonderful and auspicious. Thus, they always merge in an ocean of transcendental bliss. Such devotees never ask Lord for any benediction. I, however, am in danger. Thus I pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is eternally existing, who is invisible, who is the Lord of all great personalities such as Brahma, and who is available only by transcendental bhakti yoga. Being extremely subtle, he is beyond the reach of my senses and transcendental to all external realization. He is unlimited, he is the original cause, and he is completely full of everything. I offer my obeisances unto him. So Gajendra, he describes that those who are one pointed, they don't have any other desire except serving Sri Hari. They don't have any other shelter except the Lord. And Gajendra, when he was being attacked by a crocodile, he was struggling for his life. And he looks up and he sees so many demigods who are ready to offer him shelter. But Gajendra, he says, no, I'm not asking for you. I am calling out for He who gives shelter to those who are shelterless, the Supreme Lord. I'm calling out for the Supreme Lord. So Hanuman is thinking that um, the same thing, that I need to take full shelter of the holy name and should have full faith in the words of my Guru Jambavan. So when the devotee, they perform bhakti and they are engaged in service, there is one thing for sure, that tests or obstacles will come in their path of bhakti, and we have to successfully pass all these obstacles, which are basically anarthas in us, to make spiritual advancement. And Hanuman, he faced obstacles in his service to find Mother Sita. And there are interesting pastimes of how he passed all these obstacles. So there are 8 obstacles that come in his path. And so these are the 8 obstacles. There is complacency, competitive nature, envy, diffident, which is opposite of confident, and self doubt, guilt, worry, impulsive behavior, and anger. So we'll read uh, how Hanuman passed these obstacles. So we also get to learn if these obstacles come in our bhakti, in our service, how do we cross them? So we'll read. Does someone want to read? So this article is by Chaitanya Charan Das, and this is one of the chapters in his book, Wisdom from the Ramayana, the link that I posted yesterday in the Skype. Okay, so can someone be able to read?
I can read. Nobody
Sure.
wants to read, then I can read. Okay, so reflections on Hanuman's flight across the ocean to Lanka. Among the most visually dramatic events in Valmiki's Ramayana is Hanuman's flight, across the ocean to Lanka, the stronghold of the demon king Ravan, who had abducted Sita. During his aerial journey, Hanuman's thoughts and actions as he encountered various obstacles can guide us when we face challenges in our life and in our spiritual life in particular. Let reflections reinforce action. When Hanuman leapt off the Indian coastline, he fixed his mind on Ram. He remembered Ram's grief stricken yet hope filled words during their last meeting, when Ram had given him a signet ring to give to Sita. Ram had not given any such token to anyone else in any of the search parties sent in the 4 directions to search for Sita. Ram's handing that ring to Hanuman reflected his confidence that Hanuman would find Sita. Remembering Ram's confidence in him, Hanuman felt increasingly energized to reach Lanka as fast as possible. The wind god, the celestial father of Hanuman, wanted to aid his son, who was performing an extraordinary service to their lord. Accordingly, the wind blew powerfully behind Hanuman, helping him move faster. As Hanuman flew, the sight of the vast ocean stretching out in all directions below him reminded him of the potency of Ram's names. The sacred scriptures declare that by chanting the Lord's names, one can cross the entire ocean of material existence. What then would be difficulty in crossing one ocean within that material existence? Seeing shoals of aquatics moving about in the ocean, Hanuman thought of how the other Vanaras in his party were praying for success, and not just praying but also performing austerities. When he was preparing to take off for Lanka, they had told him that till he returned they would perform yogic meditation. They would stand on one foot, praying that their merits of their austerity assist Hanuman in his mission. As he remembered those for whom he was working and those with whom he was working, his inspiration increased and his determination deepened. With his reflections thus energizing his actions, Hanuman sped through the sky towards destination Lanka. Whenever we do anything that challenges us in our spiritual life, we need to ensure that our thoughts support us, not sabotage us. If we carefully contemplate the things that inspire us, not the things that dishearten us, our contemplations can work in tandem with our actions.
Yes. So, as we were reading, when we do any kind of service, we should constantly remind us why are we doing it and for whom are we doing it. We are doing it for Krishna's pleasure, and we should contemplate on the gifts and the opportunities Krishna has given us, like the association of devotees and guru and sadhus and shastras. So that will make us positive and determined in our service. And we should also remember that so much sacrifices that others have done for us to give us knowledge, and this path of bhakti. Like Prabhupada, he has sacrificed so much to give us Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was doing translations in the middle of the night and sacrificed so much to give us temples, to build this Krishna conscious movement. So if we remember these sacrifices of great souls, then that will make us determined in our services. Okay, so let's continue.
Okay, should I continue? Yeah. Don't let the good come in the way of the best. When Hanuman was speeding above the ocean, he suddenly found a mountain rising in front of him. The personified mountain, a venerable elderly person named Mainak, told Hanuman that he had been friends with Dashrath, Ram's father. He said that he wanted to serve Ram by serving Ram's servant, specifically a dedicated servant such as Hanuman. Mainak asked Hanuman to rest on the mountain before continuing on his onerous flight. For Hanuman, reciprocating with Mainak's desire to serve Ram would not have been wrong, far from it. It would have been proper etiquette. Devotees are expected to be courteous with everyone, what to speak of other devotees. But Hanuman had mission far more urgent than resting or socializing. He knew how much Ram was distressed in separation from Sita, and he could also imagine how Sita would be pining in separation from her Lord. Now that he was so close to reaching Sita, he didn't want to lose even one moment. Moreover, Sugriv, the Vanara king who was overseeing the search for Sita, had asked the search parties to return within a month. Hanuman and his party had already been searching for longer than that. He didn't want to do anything that would delay him further. And yet Hanuman didn't have the heart to reject the service Mainak was so kindly offering. After all, Mainak was a pious soul devoted to the same Lord whom Hanuman was devoted. So Hanuman lowered himself from his aerial trajectory and touched the mountain, thus offering it his respects. Rising again, he explained the urgency of his service and sought Mainak's permission to continue. Pleased with Hanuman's untiring eagerness to serve Ram, Mainak gladly gave permission. Okay. The Bhagavad Gita 9:26 states that the Lord accepts even the simplest offering given in devotion, because he focuses on the devotion with which it is offered. Hanuman, as a devotee of the Lord, accepted Mainak's devotion while ensuring that in practice his own service was not delayed. Thus, Hanuman expertly did both. He honored etiquette and stayed fixed in his purpose. When we are rendering an important and difficult service to the Lord, we may be offered comforts by those wanting to assist us. We may be inclined to enjoy those comforts as due rewards for our hard work. But if we keep our purpose foremost, we won't be swayed. Simultaneously, we need to be careful not to go to the other extreme. We may be tempted to reject those comforts as an exhibition of our renunciation. Hanuman's example reminds us to be courteous, appreciating their intention of service even when we have to say no. Hanuman's declining Mainak's offer also illustrates that even in the context of devotional service to the Lord, the good is often the greatest enemy of the best. If we had to choose between the bad and the best, we would naturally choose the best. At least we won't be confused about what to choose, even if our conditionings made that choice difficult to implement. But when we have to choose between the good and the best, the mind's rationalizations can delude us into preferring the good. By nourishing our intelligence regularly through scriptural study, we can keep our eyes fixed on the best. When we have a yes for the most important thing burning within us, we will get the conviction to say no to less important things.
Yes. So here Menika mountain is telling Hanuman, Hanuman, please relax for some time. Let me serve you, and then you can proceed to serve Lord Ram. So Hanumanji, he folded his palms and he respectfully touched the mountain and thanked Menika, but he declined to accept. And Hanuman said, please bless me. I cannot afford to relax now. I'm on a very important mission. I have to find Mother Sita. So Hanuman did not allow any distraction to come in his way and he continued to fly. So one devotee I was hearing in a lecture, he said that many times we come to Krishna consciousness, and as years pass, we are respected as advanced devotees. We get so many facilities, so many opportunities. People respect you, and these facilities and position, this can distract us from our service. So subtle desires of labh and pratishtha can come in us. We were discussing yesterday evening call. So Hanuman, he's teaching us that don't get complacent, don't get distracted from your service, because this is one of the biggest obstacle is complacency, being given comforts, respects, position, and honor that can bewilder us, make us proud, and relax our standards. Um, so this devotee was saying that initially devotees, they sing and chant and give lectures for the pleasure of Krishna, but when people start attending lectures, they start appreciating. Then we become calculative in speaking Krishna katha or kirtan. We see how many people are coming, and if we see that nobody is there or few people are there, then I'm not going to do kirtan or not going to give lecture. So, but we need to think that we are doing this for Krishna's pleasure, um, um, not for showing it off to the world. We're not doing any favor to anyone by doing preaching or kirtan. It's for our own nourishment. So we have to be careful on not being complacent. And like Hanuman, we should respect the sentiments of the people, their mood of love. We accept the mood, but we don't accept the facilities or take seriously the appreciation or the position that they give us, and we continue to serve the Lord. Okay, so that was the obstacle, the first obstacle of complacency, and Hanuman showed us how to um, mitigate that. So now the second obstacle is competitive nature. Let's see this further.
Okay, so when know which battles to fight and which to skip. When Hanuman flew on, he soon came across a gigantic creature who identified herself as the demoness Surasa. Actually, she was a goddess, the mother of Nagas, or celestial serpents, and the daughter of Daksha, a progenitor son of Brahma. She had been asked by the gods to test Hanuman, specifically his Bala and Buddhi, two resources he would need in abundance if he were to succeed in Lanka. Surasa told Hanuman that she was going to devour him and that he had no chance to escape, because she had been blessed by Brahma that any creature going by that area would have to enter her mouth. Initially, when Hanuman had seen this fearsome demoness with her deadly mouth wide open, he had been about to attack, but on hearing her speak, he changed tack. He requested her to let him go and deliver Ram's message to Sita, assuring her that during his return journey he would enter her mouth. When she remained unrelenting, he told her that he would enter her mouth if she could make it big enough to accommodate him. Saying this, he expanded his size. When the demoness made her mouth bigger than him, he made his body bigger still. No matter how big she made her mouth, Hanuman kept making himself bigger still. Both of them repeatedly exhibited their extraordinary shape changing abilities. When Hanuman saw that this competition of size expansion was just going on and on, he reversed his strategy. He suddenly decreased his body to a small size. He entered Surasa's mouth, and before she could close her cavernous mouth, he slipped out. Folding his hands in front of her, he told her that he had honored Brahma's benediction by entering her mouth. She should now let him proceed. Pleased with him, she revealed her true identity and purpose and blessed him to move on. Hanuman thus passed the test of the gods with flying colors. He demonstrated his strength by expanding his body to phenomenal dimensions and his intelligence by expertly honoring Brahma's benediction while persevering in his purpose. Here, Hanuman intelligently chose his battles. As a warrior who loved a good fight, he could have been Surasa's challenge as a spur to fight, but he expertly put things first. Instead of getting into a needless and possibly endless confrontation, he took the humble position by decreasing his size and moved on with his mission. For Hanuman, proving his own greatness was not as important as carrying out his mission. We too need to be similarly intelligent in choosing our battles. Amidst conflicts that may arise as we pursue our goal of pure devotion to the Lord, we need to discern which issues to hold on to and which to let go. Many things may be wrong around us, and we may feel that we need to set them all right, but we are finite beings with finite time, energy, and resources. If we try to fight every single battle that comes our way, we'll keep fighting endlessly, drain ourselves completely, not do even those things we could have done, and most important, waste valuable time that could be used in nourishing our devotion. In our interaction with our loved ones, for example, we may find ourselves getting into a heated argument on an issue that is not particularly important. At such time, instead of getting sucked into the confrontation, we need to mentally take a step back and get our priorities straight. Our relationship should aid us in our spiritual life, and thus they are more than some temporary issue. Our love for our family, friends, and associates during our life's spiritual journey should free us from the need to be right in every argument. Knowing that the battle of egos can be endless, we can take the humble position. Humility does not mean letting ourselves be trampled by others, it simply means that we don't let our ego come in the way of our purpose.
Yes. So in this obstacle, we see Surasa. She is trying to devour Hanuman. And Hanuman earlier, he was competing with her. He was trying to increase his size, and she was trying to increase her size. And he noticed that this competition was wasting his time. And then he became like a mosquito size, and he went up to her throat and came back. And he then said, Mother, I fulfill your desire and fulfill Brahmaji's benediction also. So Surasa, she started laughing and she said, "Oh, clever monkey, you are not only humble, you are very intelligent. I'm proud of you, and you will definitely succeed." So Surasa here represents the mentality to show off in public. When you're not happy the way that you are, you want to show a size that you are not, so that you get public appreciation. So like we wear masks to mask our original identity and show what we are not. So that's one thing. Also, when we come to devotional service, sometimes we forget the mission, forget the purpose, and with other Vaishnavas, we start competing. Oh, you're doing this much, I will do more than you. I am right, you're wrong. And like that, we get attracted by these petty wins of ego clashes. And I want to win this argument, like that. So we forget the Lord and we forget the mission and we get upset with somebody over trivial matters and we compete with others. So the solution that Hanuman is teaching us is to become is instead of becoming big, bigger, biggest, we should become smallest. In being small and humble in front of another Vaishnava, we are actually able to achieve Lord's service. We are able to serve without impediments. So this is the obstacle of competitive nature that we need to overcome and need to focus on our goal of serving Krishna. So we'll do the last obstacle. For today's class. We'll do the rest later. So this obstacle is envy of others.
When one door closes, look for another that has opened. While Hanuman was flying on, he suddenly found himself paralyzed. Though he strained to the fullest extent of his phenomenal strength, he couldn't move onwards. Looking down, he saw a hideous demoness named Simika looking at him and licking her lips. He understood that she had used her mystic powers to catch his shadow, thereby arresting his progress. As he was considering his options, he found himself being pulled down towards her devouring, gloating mouth. Her plan was to chew Hanuman, to kill him and feast on him. With remarkable presence of mind, Hanuman used the momentum generated by the demoness pulling him down to speed through her mouth down into her alimentary canal. Before she could even understand what was happening, he went deep into her stomach and started attacking it from within. Eventually, after ripping apart her stomach from inside, he emerged, unhurt and victorious. As the demoness fell screaming to her death into the ocean, setting off huge waves, Hanuman flew on. Simika represents envious people who try to pull down the person who is the object of their envy. Hmm. I'll just read. Simika represents envious people who try to pull down the person who is object of their envy. Just as Simika caught Hanuman's shadow, the envious catch hold of incidental or inconsequential faults in those who are doing good things, even extraordinary things. But just as the very power with which Simika pulled Hanuman down ended up becoming a cause of her destruction, the shenanigans of the envious rebound against them. In the Vedic scriptures, we find many examples of envious people being destroyed by their envy of devotees of the Lord. Sometimes envious people may create problems for us that are almost impossible to overcome, just as Hanuman found it impossible to move on. Instead of becoming overwhelmed or disheartened, we can keep our wits about us as did Hanuman, and by the Lord's grace, some way forward will emerge. In general, when one door closes in our face during our life journey, we may feel frustrated, but instead of glaring at that door, we can start looking for some other door that might be opening. If we let resentment bind us, we will miss the open door, which is often an invitation from the Lord to increase our devotion and service to Him. The no, the no to a particular door in life is not a no to life. Failures in spiritual life don't equate with a failed spiritual life. If we keep persevering in our service attitude, striving our best to find some way to serve our Lord, then no matter how many doors close in our life, some door will soon open somewhere. The Bhagavad Gita 15:8 assures us that those who stay conscious of the Lord are guided by His grace to overcome all obstacles. Even if we find ourselves powerful externally, we needn't let ourselves become hopeless internally. If we keep ourselves faithfully hopeful, then that inner power of faith will attract the supreme power of divine grace, revealing a way where none seem to exist.
Yes. So we see Simika here, who caught hold of Hanuman's shadow and pulled him down. So we read shadow, it represents our faults and flaws, and Simika mentality represents those who, instead of appreciating that here's a person who's serving the Lord, he's busy finding out faults in them in envy and pulls him down. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is explaining that those who envy devotees are themselves destroyed by their enemy, as we see in the case of Simika, she was destroyed. But this does not mean that we should destroy the envious person, like Hanuman did in this case, in this particular instance. So I heard a little different commentary of this pastime that maybe explain this better. So some devotee was saying that Simika exists within us, our own envious nature. That is Simika. And Hanuman is teaching us that in our devotional in services, we have to compromise with many of our weaknesses, shortcomings like lust, anger, greed, etc. But one thing that we should not compromise on is our envy. So in spiritual life, we have this verse: every principle can be dovetailed in Krishna's service except for envy. Kam Krishna karmarpane, क्रोध भक्त द्वेषी जने, लोभ साधु संग हरि कथा, मोह इष्ट लब्धा बने, मद Krishna gunagane, niyukta kariba yatha tatha. I will use my lust in the service of Krishna. So we can dovetail that to have devotee kids, and anger, use anger against those who are inimical to devotees, and use greed in hearing more and more Hari Katha. And I will become bewildered when I do not attain the worship of my Lord, and I will be mad um, when I intensely glorify the qualities of Krishna. So we have all these that we can dovetail, but what we cannot dovetail is envy. So Simika is not someone outside of us; she's within us, and we are carrying envy in our hearts, and because of this, our progress is choked. So if we think that we are not making advancement in bhakti, it's because of envy. And envy stops us from our journey towards the Lord. And therefore, we can't go ahead until we deal with simika like envy in our hearts. And how do we deal with envy? Not by negotiation or discussion or spending time with mind. No, envy has to be crushed. It needs to be dealt immediately. Like a weed, an expert gardener needs to pull the weed out of the garden, and Sadikai needs to pull the weed of envy from his heart. Um, Deal with it immediately, like Hanuman did. He immediately, instantly killed Simika. So that was one explanation that I got. So further, Hanuman moves and he will get his fourth obstacle. So we'll do the rest of the obstacles in the next class, which I'll stop here. Thank you for
Hare
giving me the
Krishna.
opportunity.
Thank you for the nice class. I was a little distracted. I had to do something, but I will hear it later on. So, in between for some time. But so, anybody has any comments? Nobody has any comments? Okay. So, we will stop here.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And the class is, I'm also planning to hear it. I was just
No
having
problem,
some,
Prabhuji.
yeah. So, thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. And we will
Thank
see
you,
you in
Mataji.
the,
Thank you, Prabhuji.
thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you
Very
so
nice
much.
class.
Thank you,
Very
Prabhu.
nice class, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hari
Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Hello.